So the reason it's critical to understand the emotional state of the person you're talking to is if a person is experiencing a particular set of or package of emotions or one big emotion, that can and will potentially affect and limit their ability to receive information that you're trying to give them.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you.
EQ Gangsters. How do you assess the emotional state of the person you're speaking with? How do you assess the emotional state of the person you're speaking with? There's a lot of relevant situations for that question. One is leadership, one is parenting, one is marriage, one is coaching leaders, one is coaching sports. Lots of scenarios that question is very relevant to. In the context, I'm reading a book right now, well, a couple books right now, and one of them is a coaching book. And in the coaching book, she made a really interesting point that typically by the end of a coaching session, that person a lot of times is mentally and or emotionally exhausted from, questions. Most of the time, a coaching session does not stay surface level. I think to increase the effectiveness of a coaching session, you want to go to level 2 and level 3, not stay at level 1. And so, but doing level 2 and level 3 thinking for most people is heavy lifting. That's not 5-pound dumbbells or 10-pound kettlebells. Those are 30, 40, 50 pounders that you're having to do multiple reps with during a coaching session. And then if you hit level 3 questions, you're talking 80 to 100 pounds kettlebells that you're having someone do mental and emotional lifting with. And so for me as a people guy, and empathy is actually one of my strengths, that I do some of that naturally, I feel like, but I also think that, man, it hit me hard enough that I need to be more aware of that, and then I need to think of some questions that I can ask to help me increase my awareness, because there have been a number of times where I feel like I have a good idea, understanding where this person's at emotionally based on their responses to the questions that I'm asking. And then all of a sudden, an emotion will pop out kind of out of nowhere. And it's also happened to me when I have been receiving coaching. There have been a question like, okay, yeah, this is an easy question. Boom, here's my answer. When the coach asked me the question, only for me to get surprise attacked by an emotion that was not queued up. It was not part of the original line or flow of questions. So, in those are scenarios, those are kind of, I say exceptions because that's not normally how it works, but there are some times when, you get asked a good question and it can unlock stuff that you were not prepared for and or aware that it's going to unlock stuff inside of you. I think that skill, which is social awareness, which is, you know, a huge part of EQ, of being able to identify somebody's emotional state in any given moment is critical. It's critical. It's critical. One of the ways to get good at that is by, you know, nonverbals. And early on in the podcast, I shared some ideas. There's some really good ideas to work on social awareness. One thing is when you're just watching a show, you're watching Netflix, you're watching a movie, is shut off the sound, put it on mute, and see if you can, and then do a little exercise with everyone that's watching in terms of like, okay, what emotion is this actor feeling? What emotion is this actor feeling? What emotion are they trying to express? What emotion are they trying to communicate? You know, without the sound. Another one is just stopping the film and seeing the expressions on the faces and seeing what emotions, and really like make it fun. Like you write down a list of emotions that you think that actor is feeling, or even, you know, while it's playing, just without the sound, and just see it. Because again, that's all nonverbals. And I'm telling you, you all will come up with different answers. You will not have the same answers. So if I say, okay, we're going to take 30 seconds and let's write down what emotions actor A is feeling, and what emotions actor B is feeling, and what emotions actor C is feeling. And I'm telling you, you will come up with different emotions. And then talk about that stuff. Because it's critical. It's critical. And why is it critical? So that's a good question. So the reason it's critical to understand the emotional state of the person you're talking to is, if a person is experiencing a particular set of or package of emotions, or one big emotion, that can and will potentially affect and limit their ability to receive information that you're trying to give them. Here's a perfect example. I've got a scenario where there's leader A and leader B, and I'm coaching both these leaders. Leader A completely shut down leader B because of leader A's approach. And, you know, kind of like the initial MO, modus operandi of leader A is like, I'm just going to push harder. Like, dude, you don't get it. You need to get your poop in a group. And leader B is like, you don't get it. I'm not listening or doing a darn thing that you're telling me to do because you don't get it. And leader A is like, no, you don't get it, right? And it's back and forth. And I'm telling you, we may say, oh, emotions don't affect us. Right? Which is a hardcore myth that a lot of guys would like to believe it doesn't affect, right? Here's another one. Another real scenario. One of my clients, there was, it's our first session. I'm like, hey man, what is on your, you know, what's on your mind? And he said, well, and this is first session. First, like, he doesn't know me, I don't know him. The first session, and he's like, well, it kind of came out like, I'm like, hey, is everything all right? He's like, well, you know, I've been thinking about this guy. He, you know, kind of a close friend who passed away, and it's just still been on my mind a lot. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking like, oh man, this just happened this weekend. Like, this guy, a close friend of his, passed away this weekend. The guy died 6 months ago. 6 months ago, the first thing that this guy is on his head and heart with the very first session is this guy. How effective can you be at work if you haven't allowed yourself to grieve and mourn and process emotions, y'all. That's a perfect example. And not that he wasn't doing work, but man, I was just shocked that, man, the first thing on this guy's mind with a complete stranger is his close friend that has passed away 6 months ago. Don't tell me that that has not affected and impacted his ability to work. So I gave him some exercises. We talked about, I asked him a bunch of questions, talked to him, gave him some tools, some exercises, just met with him. And he's like, man, I'm a new man, dude. Thank you. Like, that was what I needed. I've processed it. And now, like, dude, let's go. I'm back in the saddle. So again, the ability to recognize the emotional states of the people that we're talking to is so critical. And now let's turn it on some self-awareness. How good are you at being able to do that for yourself? To recognize your own various emotional states that happen throughout the day. That's self-awareness is an area that I'm still working on. Have a lot of room to grow and improve in that area. So that's another one. What are some exercises that you can do to increase your own self-awareness to recognize your own emotional states? And here's another one. This is another great thought. What are the consequences of not being able to recognize the emotional states of the people that you talk to, that you're in life with? Your spouse, your children, that's how often, that's the real question. How often do we miss it? How often do we miss it? How about with your coworkers, your team members, your staff, your leaders that you're trying to grow? And then what do you do once you recognize, okay, something's, you recognize a particular emotional state, and it may not even be a negative thing. Maybe it's they're happy, extra happy, or they're glowing, or whatever. So what are the consequences of not recognizing those we care about's emotional states? What are the benefits and the blessings? What's the power of us being able to recognize the emotional states of the people that we're talking to? How can that increase our ability to connect, to add value, to serve, to influence, to lead, to coach, to mentor, to encourage, to uplift, to affirm, to show support, to show care, to show, again, love? It's huge. What's one action step that you can do to improve your ability to recognize the emotional state of those that are around you? I will tell you the consequences of not being able to do this. There's a dad I know who is a very high energy dude who is not great at it, and I would argue misses it a lot. And he's kind of like a bull in a china shop, and it's like, dude, the emotional injuries and the emotional consequences and the emotional walls that your children are building up to protect themselves from you they've got a full-time construction team building the emotional walls that you're creating because of your lack of awareness of their emotional states. I'm telling you, the consequences. Try to lead somebody that has built an emotional Fort Knox around themselves because of you. Try to connect with somebody. Try to encourage, try to build trust with somebody that has built up emotional Fort Knox walls around themselves. Just period. Maybe it's not even because of you, just period. It's a whole other ball game, y'all. This is a leadership, human being life hack, spouse life hack, parenting life hack to grow and work in this area. It is critical. This is where childhood emotional neglect comes from. When we don't recognize, we don't pay attention to, we don't notice the emotional states, and then therefore are not able to support our children the best way that we possibly can. So anyway, that's my encouragement, challenge to you all. Let's be better at growing our social self and social awareness so that we can be more effective parents, children, spouses, leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches. Emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Emotionally healthy leaders create emotionally healthy cultures and organizations, which lead to maximized and optimized results, outcomes, performance, and engagement.